Welcome to the Audiosocket podcast. We're currently exploring the impacts of AI on the music industry and how artists and creators will thrive in an AI era. Hi, thanks for being with me this evening. Tonight, I have Adrian Young and Adam Block joining me. As I was, looking into their past and what they've done, it was really interesting to me because the thing that occurred to me was the red thread. And I don't know if either of you two have ever heard of this, but it's something that a photographer that I worked with one time told me about. And basically folklore in Japan says that the gods tie the pinkies of two people's fingers together who are meant to play important roles in each other's lives. And as I was looking at the two of you and your backgrounds, I'm like, could they be any more different? But clearly you guys have come together in a very important way surrounding what is, I guess, your guys' passion project, which actually feels like a main hustle to me, the way you describe it. But do you mind introducing yourselves? And let's start with your collaborative project and then talk about some AI. So Adrian, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Sure. So I'm an artist. My name's Adrian Young, and I own the company label Jazz is Dead with my brother Adam Block, Ali Shaheed Muhammad, and also another man named Andrew Lahero. And, for me, I've basically built a world where I created a false reality, and I make that false reality like my life. So I live in a world where I'm a super analog guy, and I record music analog. I do a lot of scoring for television and film, and I just live in this analog world. But at the same time, I actually really appreciate digital technology. But just my reality is living in a place living in a place where it's just real instruments, real pro audio gear, real people, no robots actually creating music. And that's just my world that I just love, So anyway, that's me. I'm a producer, musician, artist, and I own a company, record label with my guy, Adam Block, called Jazz is Dead.
Amazing. And honestly, that sounds like the most fun conversation to have, given the background to talk about AI. Definitely a unique spin you'll have. Adam, please tell us your story.
Sure. I'm a 30-year music executive. I worked at Sony Music for many, many years. At Amazon Music, I went over to the DSP side for a number of years. And actually now in an adjacent space, I'm the CEO of a music-based photography gallery and business called Morrison Hotel Gallery. And, I'm thinking about Adrian talking about the reality that he built, but his path to that reality is also really interesting. And it's not necessarily all analog. And it actually, while I think we connected sort of emotionally and intellectually over music, it's the curiosity that I know is at the heart of everything Adrian does that I found sort of most compelling. And, I was sort of just hoping that I could hang, and that sort of the same energy that I hope I embody, I could bring to the conversation. And I think that's one of the things that we both appreciate about working together.
Amazing. I love that. Well, so I'm gonna ask a question just broadly, and really kind of respond from the gut. Generally speaking, what is your sentiment towards AI at this point, as it specifically relates to artistic creation?
So for me, it doesn't scare me at all. Like, people are freaking out about AI this and AI that, but it doesn't scare me at all because it doesn't threaten my dreams per se, or what I personally want to do, because my world is so anti-robot in a way. It's kind of like, yes, I love robots, but we lead the robots. The robots don't lead me or us in my situation. I'll give you an example. Um, so the music I make, right? Um, I love instrumentation, and there's nothing against people opening up a laptop and making music. I think honestly, I think it's great that people could do that. But the kind of stuff I love is from my favorite era of music, which is from 68 to 73. That's my favorite era of music. And I kind of go back to move forward to make that for today. So in order to do that kind of music, you need to actually use real orchestra. You need to actually use a real drummer. You can't do that on a computer. And also, being that I record on tape machines and all that stuff, that sound cannot be duplicated, you know? So that being said, I'm not afraid of the robots, like, because you're not going to say, the robot will never be able to say, make a John Coltrane song that was recorded on an Ampeg 350 from 1954 for Blue Note Records and is released that way. Because sonically, we're not there. Things could get kind of close, but to me, I create for people that have a very sagacious sense of detail. Like that's just, it's a very bespoke, handmade perspective on the creation of art. So that being said, people that are more so into making art for the masses, like for everybody to enjoy, for the Saturday night crowd to just be able to get into and all that stuff, they might be afraid because the robots will essentially be able to do what they can do. But with what we do here with Jazz is Dead, what I do personally as a musician, and I don't mean this in any arrogant way, it's just my art is based on the notion of edifying human error. So.
Love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you, Adam?
I'm more scared.
I'm more scared too.
I'm more scared.
I think he's got a strategy. I think bespoke is his strategy.
Well,
funny.
And actually, I'm actually not scared for Jazz is Dead, because I think Jazz is Dead. Look, Jazz is Dead would not exist without Adrian and Ali's creative, artistic contribution and that very specific way that they make music, how they approach writing, how they approach recording. But I'm not worried about Jazz is Dead, because Jazz is Dead is that, and sort of expanding dimensions from that create an environment, and beyond that, a community, and dimensions that I think are a lot different than, a recording created by, by machine learning or art created by machine learning. I mean, it's a lifestyle. Jazz is Dead is a lifestyle. So
exactly,
I don't think that AI is going to threaten that. But I'm concerned. I'm concerned that I'm actually even less concerned about the implications it has on art and more on politics and life and issues like that. But I'm concerned that you let this genie out of the bottle, and an analogy from the music business that I fear is the dawn of the digital era. And the music industry certainly made a mistake by not embracing it. So don't misunderstand me, anybody out there. I think this must be embraced. It's a reality. You can't fight it. You shouldn't fight it. But I also think that managing it and being really mindful of it spinning out and what happens if it spins out is something that I would hope the creators of it are really thinking hard about. And that does worry me. I feel like we've proven to ourselves now, with sort of this age of accelerated technology development, that we're not doing a great job of managing all this cool stuff, potentially cool stuff that we're building. And it's creating some real issues that I think that this could contribute to.
Yeah. I wonder if there's, so Adrian, you've got a vinyl shop, yeah?
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
Is this going to be sort of like one of those things that divides. There's, the people that are AI music lovers, and then there's the people that are, human music lovers, and kind of the way that we do vinyl versus digital. Like, is that a direction that you see things going?
To me, to be honest with you, like, I always tell people that new music to me are old records I've never heard, because I really don't listen to much modern music. And the reason I don't listen to much modern music is because most modern music is just made in a box, and it's just not what I'm into. It doesn't mean it's not good music. It just it does not viscerally speak to me personally. So what I've noticed in having a record store for over 15 years is that people love art. People love human generated art. So it's interesting because what hip hop is the bricolage of vinyl culture. Hip hop sampled so many records across so many different genres and made the hip hop listener like country music and like psychedelic rock music and like jazz. And what happened was that the music of the past became relevant again. And a lot of these people that were sampled by a lot of these hip hop artists were able to get the careers that they actually really didn't have in the 70s or 60s or 50s for some of them. And I say this all to say that there's always going to be a human connection to humans, right? And that's why even during COVID, people were like, I don't know if performances will ever come back. And it's like, what are you talking about? People always want to see people and feel people and touch people. And like, this AI conversation has been going on for well over a century, because the same conversation happened when people were starting to hear recordings of orchestras on vinyl, right? Like, you could play a record and you don't have to hire musicians to be there. Oh no, we're going to lose our jobs. Like, musicians, I already look at life as if musicians aren't supposed to make money anyway. I look at it like we're supposed to be professionally broke. That's like the perspective already, right? So if that's the perspective, what ways are you going to make money? Because you ain't going to make money selling music. That's just not how it works, right? You do other things. And that's already been accepted for me. So throughout the years, with the synthesizer, with the sampler, musician unions have been going against anything that could replace the monies that come in for musicians and our artists, right? So that being said, we've been through this. The question is now, are we at a point where it could spiral out of control? And that's something that you brought up, Adam. And it's interesting because yes, it can. I mean, you could just say, hey, write a song that sounds like Kanye meets, Common meets Stevie Wonder or something. And there's an algorithm that they could put together. But for me, I won't like the song anyway. So I don't care. And for the stuff I'm doing in my world, like kind of like jazz to soul to everything being live and recorded on tape, like I live in this fake world as if that's pop music. So for me, just being extremely subjective here, I ain't tripping, man. I ain't tripping. Like, people could do whatever they want to do. But for the greater world of artists that are creating inside of the box, that are exclusively creating inside of the digital world, the thing is that this digital world has always helped them create things. So now it's becoming easier for them. With the advent of the beat machine, the advent of the sampler, with the advent of digital recording through Pro Tools, with the advent of programs that could provide chords for you to make a song. And you don't have to understand music theory. You could just make a song. And now you could type in lyrics and the computer could sing that for you. Like, this isn't brand new. This has been happening for a while. So, and these same people that are using it are complaining that it could get better.
It's going to replace. Yeah.
Well, it'll just make their job easier. That's how I look at it. But I say that I'm teasing. But the point is, like, for me, at the end of the day, human connection is real. So nothing could ever supersede our primordial need to feel other humans when it comes to art. And that's just my overall philosophy when it comes to AI.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely a shared sentiment. And maybe honestly,
Yeah.
it brings us back to our roots, to some, like you're saying, if you're already writing in the box and this forces you out. And this was another creator that I was talking to, or another artist I was speaking with earlier on. He's extremely realistic about the impact of AI on production music, because that's his world. And, he basically is saying, yeah, it's going to be able to replace what we do as sort of background artists. But like you're saying, that's kind of in the box that you're talking about. They're already using all these tools. So, maybe we're going to end up in this incredibly amazing era where we just get stripped back down to our roots. And that's the difference between, AI music and human music, is it actually is back to human music. So Adam, like, obviously 19 years at Sony. And by the way, you're quite humble when you introduce yourself.
Very.
That's okay. I've pre-recorded an intro for you. But how, as far as the responses that you've seen so far from, major labels and publishers, in terms of AI that's been popping up. You were saying, we missed kind of the mark in not embracing digital music back in the day. What lessons have we learned, and do you think that the response today is the right response?
Did we learn the right lessons? I think lots of today's executives say the right things, and certainly would lead us to believe that we learned the right lessons. I don't know. I mean, I think that, you've got sort of the corporate world of music and major labels, and, the antithesis, Jazz is Dead is the antithesis of that, on the opposite end of the spectrum. And I'm not saying that with judgment, that's just a reality. But, when decisions are being made, at a corporate level, and the art is in some ways being dictated to by a corporation and by a P&L and by all of the factors that contribute to running a business of that size, I think there are plenty of folks in the music industry on the label side who are delighted to see, maybe not delighted, that might be even too cynical for me, who's occasionally cynical, but who recognize an opportunity for them to run their businesses more profitably by requiring fewer humans in the process. And, that again, that's a pretty cynical view, but I think that there's probably not an aspect that we're looking at AI applications for where that's not a part of the reality. It's like, if the idea is the machines replacing humans and there are benefits and there are drawbacks, then the economic impact to your businesses are something that people are going to be thinking about and talking about. Is that a good thing? Not if you're 17 years old and dream about having a job at a music company, when there are fewer of those jobs available, or you're 17 years old and you want to be, or 14 years old and you want to be a concert, cellist or something, there might be fewer and fewer of those jobs. I don't know that I'm answering your question. In fact, I think I'm not answering your question, but I certainly think that, these are the sort of the considerations that need to be weighed as we're trying to figure out how do we manage this responsibly going forward. And I don't know the answer in terms of, what labels are going to do with it, how it's going to impact, labels, but I guarantee, the corporation's going to have a big say in how widely this gets applied. That I feel certain about. And that kind of bums me out.
Yeah. I want to add on to something that Adam was just saying, because listening to you speak, I think about a time when someone's going to be listening to us and we're going to be talking about the fact that one day actors will be replaced, right?
Mhm.
There'll be just some AI act, and then the question is, wow, now they don't have a job. But I think, as an artist, I always say the artist is a professional at not having a job. That's what the artist is, right? They're pros at not having a job, right? And the longer you do that, the better you get at understanding how to diversify, and you get into a position where you could become very successful by figuring out what you have to do to survive. So again, this conversation has been happening for so long. And literally, we are in an age where computers are doing so much of the work that us humans don't have to be as prepared to create anymore. So going back to what Adam said, when you're looking at this economically, when you don't have to pay for a band to be in a studio, when you don't have to pay residuals for these band members, what do you think is going to happen? This is already happening on so many levels, throughout our industrial age. So when it applies to us, to be honest with you, as a creative, I don't think that we are owed a job. That's just how I feel. I think that we have value in our likeness and what we do. So somebody should not be profiting off of my name and my likeness without my approval, right? But if somebody wants to use a computer to try to determine the algorithm to figure out how to make an Adrian Young sounding song or whatever, I think it's cool, whatever. I just don't believe in it because I know it can never really, really, really happen based on the type of creative I am, based on the fact that my perspective is about people coming together to create. And there's no way that's ever going to be replaced by a robot.
Yep. It's your DNA. I mean, your musical DNA. Well, so last week, Google DeepMind and YouTube announced Lyria, which is, for anybody watching that hasn't seen it yet, it kind of blew my mind a little bit. To be honest, I was just sort of like, I don't know yet what to think. And they have created a tool that, I guess soon you'll be able to go in. They showed a demo of it. Say, I want a song about, my dog died. And I want to, the sentiment is going to be sad. The vocals are going to be Charlie Puth. Go. And then it'll create a song. Adrian, they come to you and say, hey, can we use your vocals? Can we create what you do? Are you into it? Like if they, if they're sort of like, hey, you're going to be an ongoing part of this revenue stream. Anybody that makes an Adrian Young song, you're going to make money from it. Like, does that compromise your values in any way? Or are you like, hey, I'm down?
So this is the thing. I'm so confident in who I am that, say, for example, somebody wanted to analyze, let's just say this, somebody analyzed all my chords and all the music I made, and now they want to create a program to create Adrian Young style compositions. And they wanted to pay me for that. Me personally, I'd be okay with it, and I'll say why. Obviously, the deal has to be right?
Yeah.
But I'd be okay with it because my thing is that algorithm is going to start showing me what I was doing, and I have to force myself to be better than that. I can't be limited to that. So it forces me to get better. So like, I think it's just, again, it's another opportunity. It's not like selling myself out because, again, if I was, let's just say this, if I was a modern hip hop artist that was producing for himself and rapping everything in the box, everything on the computer, and my vocals were manipulated by auto-tune. So that means that you don't actually need my voice. You can just do it. And then if a company asked me, hey, we want to pay you this amount of dollars to make AI type music based on what you created before. If the money's right, I'm down to do it, because I still, again, like, my job as a human is to prove that I could do something better than the robot. And again, what is the purpose of art? Is the purpose of art for people to be able to feel it and appreciate it? Or is the purpose of art just to make money? And in this scenario, if a robot can do something better than I can do as a human and people can enjoy it, hey, I'm down with it. I'm cool with it. Like, and I'm just being very honest with it, because I am so arrogant about being a human. I am that arrogant. I am that arrogant about being a human. So, ask me in another 40 years when I'm like super broke because the computers took my whole style, and and I'm like depressed.
I actually think, Jen, I think you're asking, I don't know if you're asking a question. I don't know if you're leading the witnesses a little bit, but I'm going to take this way. I'm sort of thinking of, that application as not so different from sampling. And if the industry treats the creators who are being mimicked or copied or built off of the way we treat now, presently, we got that right finally when we started paying the artists who were being sampled for their work. I actually think it just becomes another revenue stream for an artist. So, if the machine wants to attempt to, do an Adrian Young, Black Dynamite, AI version, as long as Adrian's being compensated for that, and it's distinguished that, this is the machine, this is not Adrian, I actually think that kind of gets interesting. And that's when I talk about managing this correctly and respectfully, respecting the artist, respecting the art, appreciating that, without it, the AI can't really work, right? Yeah. You have to type in, make me an Adrian Young song.
Yep.
I think if we're doing that, then, we're starting to get on a path that I can be comfortable with as an advocate of the creators, or, I'll call myself a champion of the artists because that sounds good.
Yeah. So cool. I mean, I like that, because to me, this is all part of the conversation, is what are the sustainable revenue models for artists in an AI era, which is honestly a big part of what I'm trying to do here, is really like turn stones, talk to people, hear what everybody's, like, what's going on in your mind, what would you participate in, where do you want to make sure you're protected? And I think what you just said answers a lot of the questions as far as like, what's the protected layer? And that's really making sure that, call it a society, because that's what we tend to create, I guess, is sort of like these societies that have very, at this point, sophisticated tracking systems and ways to ensure that the original author is always being attributed. And then, it's like you said, sampling or covering. Now it's just opening up all kinds of new ways to make money. So to that end, I mean, is AI actually doing something different than the technologies that people have been leveraging in the past? Is it scarier, really, or is it just different?
I think Adam kind of hit it on the nose earlier. The question is, can it spiral out? I think that's what the real question is, because there has been this continuum, and that's a perfect example regarding sampling, because the late 80s, early 90s were like the wild, wild west of sampling. Laws were starting to be developed, and then with the Beastie Boys, like, that's when the sampling laws that we have today really kind of like, that's just what it is now. If you sample something, you're paying on the master, and if it's if the composition, if a sufficient amount of the composition is used here, then you're paying on the composition side too. And then that just became the law. And then these people that were being sampled, these artists that were being sampled, or let me rephrase, the people that own the works of the music were getting paid later on. And yes, it's another revenue stream. And with Jazz is Dead, we've worked with many artists that have been sampled. Some of them never got compensated for that. And literally, with them being sampled, it's their work now truncated into about 4 bars and like turned into a brand new song, right? So it's literally something else using prior works to make something new. That's something else now being robots. Even though with sampling, the robots did sample, right? But at least the humans, the humans did tell the robots what to do. So whatever, you get the point here. The point is, this is just a continuum, and the question is whether it would spiral out of control. And the only way it spirals out of control, from my perspective, is that if it's done in a way where the artist is not given the right to veto and or be compensated for their works.
Mm-hmm. And or, I mean, obviously, I think the fear right now is just that they don't know if it's actually you or not. So if they're using your likeness and moving in directions that you are fundamentally opposed to, that's a risk as well. So, I mean, it's such a wild west right now. And I want to ask you, Adam, a year ago, so you were at Amazon as global head of catalog music a year ago. I hear what you're saying, Adrian. Yes, this has been, I mean, AI came around with Alan Turing back in World War II, right? So this has been around a long time. But I have never been peppered with questions about AI the way I have been in the past year. Everybody has, from my board members to investors to our artists, and everybody wants to talk about it. And I honestly just went like this at first. I was like, la, la, la. I'm like, I'm not playing. No, no, no. And for a good part of that was Adrian, because a lot of our artists are, we represent bands and artists around the globe, a couple thousand of them. It is that authentic, real music where you're talking about your experiences. And maybe this is why artists can't make money, is because it makes it harder if you can't make money, right? So then you've got something to write about. But I guess I want to know, Adam, if this is in the past year, or if you were literally having these conversations more than a year ago, because to me, it's all just in real time at this point.
I mean, the conversations that we were having were in real time because it was happening. I mean, it is happening in real time. I mean, there isn't enough history yet for us to really sort of learn from, I don't think, if, those of us who are committed to learning from history. Were there conversations? Yeah, there were all kinds of conversations, as I'm sure there are at every DSP, at every record company, at every publishing house. I mean, at every, literally everywhere there is even a modicum of creative input into the product, quote unquote product, there are conversations. And if there aren't, you're friggin' crazy. You got to be paying attention. But I don't, certainly as it related to the businesses that I've been a part of, and I include Jazz is Dead in this, I personally was not feeling like I was ready to make any decisions about, how to steer a business based on what we know now. We don't know anything yet, really, other than that, we are now capable of creating at least adequate, machine generated music that satisfies the tastes of some people, not everybody. And that, we can debate sort of the aesthetics or, the merit of, creatively all we want. But, just like everything, the reaction to the actual creation is going to be subjective. And, if it sounds like Drake, there's going to be plenty of people out there who think, yeah, that sounds good, because Drake sounds good to a lot of people. And they're not, not everybody is as discerning as Adrian is, certainly when they're listening. But I kind of believe, and this is the opposite of my cynicism, this is my belief in sort of the human spirit, is that, ultimately we can sense soul. And ultimately, there is something that comes through that distinguishes great art from, adequate art. And, I'm sure at some point I'll be fooled by the machines, but with my brief experience, and it has to do with stuff that I've either read that's been written by, ChatGPT or, at some point it's really clear that something's missing, and what's missing is the soul. Mm-hmm. And it'll be interesting to see how that gets addressed or not addressed as the machine gets smarter and smarter, as it does, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so is there anything you guys are like proactively doing at Jazz is Dead to either, one, protect, or two, embrace, or three, all of the above? Have you, again, because what I'm saying is this is sort of in the last year phenomenon. Like, I was not being peppered with these questions, prior to a year ago. Is it something that you guys are really talking about internally, thinking about, and kind of participating in that narrative?
So I'll answer this by just saying absolutely not. And the reason why is because, going back to what Adam just said, it's interesting because I think with AI, as it comes to the creation of art, you either create art, create product, or both. With what we do for Jazz is Dead, it's so art first, and it's really cool if it could become product, right? But it's just like, we're just creating art. So everything that we do, from merchandise to music to our live concerts, it's so about art. It's so about art from the standpoint of us continually reinvesting our money and our time in trying to create the most unique experiences for people. So because we're doing that, the notion of creating a product just kind of really doesn't matter for us, because we've all been in this industry for so long. And the reason why I was so enamored by Adam when I first met him is because it's one of the first times I met a big executive that was just like me. And it's like, I just loved that part about him. And then when we came together, we all came together to create a company that is just based on us creating the coolest art. So in the future, if computers can create extremely unique art, extremely unique movies, extremely unique music that I actually really like, I'm excited about that, because then there's more cool stuff. And then what that would have to do, it creates competition for the humans to be better than the computers creatively. So I like that. And I think we are all in accordance that we never want our art to be pirated, right? We always want to be compensated for what we can do so that we can live our life. This is our lifestyle. So again, with Jazz is Dead, we're not really worried about it, because we're recording. The majority of our artists were in their prime, arguably, in the 70s or the 60s, right? So we're continuing the conversations that they started back then and bringing them into a studio that is reflective of where they were when they were in their 20s and what they had to do to make their first albums. We're giving them that freedom to mess up and say, yo, I like that mess up. Let's use that mess up. That's great. And that's literally the perspective of what we're doing. So like, again, me personally, I actually embrace the notion of AI because I'm about art. I'm not about product. I would love our art to be product, but it's art first. And whether a computer or humans making art, people need to be able to experience as much great art as possible, because art is important. The only thing is that from a monetary perspective, we should be protected.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I love twice now you've said, if you learn something, if it challenges you to be better, to learn, you're all about it. I love it. I love it. And yes. And so being mindful of your time, yeah, I think you just kind of ended us in a perfect place, which is, yes, artists need to be protected. We've got to figure that out. I think before we can really do much more, we need to figure that out. It's, law is slow to move, but I do know a lot of artists that are, becoming part of the dialogue. And I think the more that we can actually shape the narrative, which is where I think, artists historically have not really been at the table shaping the narrative historically. And that's why it's done to them, not with them. So at the end of the day, I'm encouraging all of our artists to, stay in touch with things, figure out how to get involved in the conversation, how to make sure you are at the table for the conversations. And yeah.
But before we go, there is something I would like to say, though.
Yeah, please.
And as a creative, you should be extremely confident and arrogant in being the best version of yourself, because no one's like you. Like, that's who you are. Like, be confident in that. But also be humble enough to understand that you should not feel entitled to a job. Like, if you're going to live your lifestyle and be who you are and try to make money based on what you see fit as art, right? Like, be humble and work hard to make your living doing what you are supposed to do, which is being creative, but never feel entitled unless somebody is taking something from you. So to go back early in our discussion when synthesizers came out, or when people started sampling and everything, right? Like, the question is, was anyone taking anything from you? If not, be confident and motivated to create value in what you are doing, and you will be okay. A computer can never replace real art. And if it does, I'm going to be a big fan of the computers, and I hope humans will as well.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Audiosocket podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes and more guest speakers.